So Your Excellencies, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Marty Durbin. I'm the Senior Vice President for Policy at the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. And let me just first say how pleased we are to co-host with TAİK this 39th American-Turkish Conference. We had the opportunity to hear from His Excellency Minister Bayraktar, who laid out what I thought was an incredibly comprehensive look at what Turkey's plans are for the energy transition, not only for themselves, but for the entire value chain within energy and the role that they will play in the entire region, and globally, I should say. In February of this year, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce was honored to host to lead a green tech business delegation to Turkey, along with our partners in our federal agencies, including the State Department and Department of Commerce and several other of the financing organizations. And let me just very quickly thank Ambassador Jeff Flake, who is with us here today, for his hospitality while we were there, the great work of his team on the ground, and of all the federal agencies that joined us there. The companies that joined us, the U.S. companies that joined us on that, were really able to see the commitment of Turkey on the role that it will play in the energy transition, and the opportunity we have to build the necessary partnerships between the private sector and government. We left with the clear impression that Turkey provides vast opportunities, not only in their domestic market, but again, as I said, to foster the energy transition throughout the region, Europe, Middle East, Central Asia, and even Africa. And the close partnership with the U.S. will help enable that as well. So we're very, very pleased and applaud the formation of the U.S. Türkiye Energy and Climate Dialogue, and we look forward to being a part of that conversation as this moves forward. And also would just note that there was a cooperation agreement signed this week between ExxonMobil and BOTAŞ, and we think is a very important step in helping to secure LNG as a transition fuel in Turkey. But my purpose for being here is to now transition and say, now we heard great remarks from His Excellency, is to now hear from the U.S. government perspective. And for that, I'm going to shortly introduce our speaker, Ambassador Geoffrey Pyatt, who's the Assistant Secretary of State for Energy Resources. Now, I can go through his entire resume here and tell you, but he's a career Foreign Service officer, the rank of minister, and go through tell you that over his career, he's had posts in Hong Kong and in Pakistan, served as ambassador to both Greece and Ukraine, stints in India and elsewhere, and of course here in the United States at the State Department in Washington. But what I really want to highlight is the important role that Ambassador Pyatt plays, and I'd say that at the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, we view him as an incredible resource and partner on anything having to do with energy across the board. I know he was in Houston with us last week with a Korea conversation, and many others. So with no further ado, I just want to tell you how delighted I am to introduce our friend and the Ambassador, Geoffrey Pyatt.
Good afternoon, and thank you very much, Marty, for that introduction. Let me also thank the American-Turkish Business Council and my new friend Murat, and the Türkiye U.S. Business Council as well for the invitation to speak at this really exceptionally well-timed event. The 39th iteration of the conference is a terrific reminder of how critical the business community is to our overall strategic relationship. And as having served as an American ambassador for quite a bit of time overseas, I have a particularly strong firsthand understanding of how much of a difference it makes when our political level relationship is undergirded by a strong business relationship, providing the durable foundation of our ties. I know that my friend and colleague, Ambassador Flake, shares this view, and really delighted and honored to have him here as well. But let me say what an enormous honor it is for me to share the stage with Minister Bayraktar. The minister has been a great friend of the United States for many years, and we have enjoyed a highly productive and collaborative relationship. And now I look forward to us doing even more together to help the energy security and energy transition of both of our countries under the umbrella of our new U.S. Türkiye Energy and Climate Dialogue. And I particularly want to congratulate Minister Bayraktar and Secretary Granholm for their accomplishment together in launching that, and just underline how strongly my team at the State Department and the Energy and Resource Bureau, but also all of our colleagues at DOE are to meeting the challenge that the minister gave us yesterday to deliver a dialogue that really moves this relationship along. This new dialogue is an important milestone in our bilateral energy relationship, and it signals our joint commitment to creating an efficient and inclusive mechanism to keep momentum on a varied and increasingly important overall energy alliance. As I hope everybody here has seen from the joint statement that was issued by our two governments together yesterday, the dialogue will have four main working groups: clean energy and energy efficiency, natural gas and LNG, clean energy finance and combating climate change, and finally, regional cooperation, the working group that my team at the Bureau of Energy Resources will lead along with our colleagues at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. This is a truly impressive range of topics, each one of which is extremely important to the national security and energy security of both of our countries. But also, let me make clear from the beginning that this dialogue is going to be critically informed by the private sector. And as Marty alluded to, we have a very strong partnership already with the U.S. Chamber on some of our other most important energy dialogues, as we did last week with our allies in Korea, and I fully expect we will build the same in this aspect of our energy agenda. Both the United States and the government of Turkey have a responsibility to ensure that what we do together truly benefits and reflects the priorities of our citizens and business communities. As illustrated by yesterday's meeting between Secretary Granholm and Minister Bayraktar, the U.S.-Türkiye relationship is critical bilaterally, but also importantly for Europe, for the Middle East, and even beyond. Turkey recognizes the integral connection between energy and national security, and it has done significant work to improve its position in this regard, which has delivered benefits for Turkey, but also for many of its NATO allies. An aspect of energy that gets less focus, but that fits perfectly with the dialogue working group led by my bureau, is how energy can also be a binding tie that helps to support and reinforce regional diplomatic cooperation. A great example of this in recent memory is how Bulgaria's neighbors and NATO partners, notably Turkey, quickly worked together to help Sofia source alternative gas supplies after Gazprom, as part of Putin's broader weaponization of Russia's energy resources, broke its contract and cut off all of Bulgaria's gas supply shortly after the invasion of Ukraine. These quick actions by Turkey and other allies helped Sofia to defeat Moscow's attempts to weaponize its gas resource, solidifying energy security in the process and helping to strengthen bilateral relations. As we look around Turkey's periphery, we see its growing role as a gas supplier to Europe through its extensive LNG import infrastructure, as well as its newfound domestic gas resources in the Black Sea. In this regard, I was especially glad to see the MOU signed yesterday between BOTAŞ and ExxonMobil on the potential long-term supply of U.S. LNG to Turkey. A contract would be another significant step by Turkey to diversify its sources of natural gas and a sign of the strength and complementary nature of our energy relationship, building on what American LNG producers are already doing to reinforce Turkey's energy security. Turkish LNG import capacity and regasification capacity remains absolutely vital for the wider region and will be increasingly important as Russian gas imports to the European Union are ended in full, and as the region continues to reorient its energy infrastructure from south to north in Europe. Using existing infrastructure, the proposed vertical corridor will allow LNG imported from the Eastern Mediterranean to fill the vast gas storage tanks in Ukraine, providing a new gas supply for Central Europe and the Western Balkans, helping to reduce price volatility along the way. It will also be crucial in supporting the EU's intention to be fully decoupled from all forms of Russian gas by 2027. Turkey's traditional role as a transit country for Caspian gas from Azerbaijan and hopefully in the future Turkmenistan will remain vital as gas serves as an important medium-term role en route to a zero-carbon, climate-friendly future. Turkey and the U.S. also share a desire to see oil flow again from Iraq through the Iraq-Turkey pipeline. I will be traveling to Iraq with this purpose next week to meet with government and industry leaders, and ITP will feature on my agenda, just as I know it did when President Erdogan made his historic trip to Baghdad last month. Turkey's regional role is not limited to fossil fuels, however. Indeed, it plays a key role in our collective clean energy and renewable future, with the potential to do even more in the years ahead. Turkey's leadership on renewables, well over 50% of overall generation capacity today, is a testament to Minister Bayraktar and the government of Turkey's long-term vision and commitment. In addition to solar and wind, abundant future resources like geothermal energy should make Turkey an even more significant source of clean energy supply in the future. And of course, the United States hopes to play an important role as Turkey looks to increase its share of nuclear energy, to include small and modular reactors, which our governments are already talking about. U.S. business is a leader in the world on nuclear, including SMRs, and this sector offers tremendous opportunity for both of our countries to pursue their shared interests. As we work together in pursuing our climate goals, both keeping within reach the limit of global temperature change to 1.5 degrees Celsius and enhancing adaptation and resilience to climate impacts, as well as collaborating on the energy transition generally, we cannot replace an era of dependence on Russian fossil fuels for an era of dependence on Chinese clean technology inputs. Against this background, clean energy supply chains provide another opportunity for the United States and Turkey, and especially Turkish industrial groups, to work together. This includes both securing and diversifying mineral supply chains in a responsible manner and leveraging Turkey's strong manufacturing base to help provide an alternative supply of clean technology parts like solar panels and wind turbines. And in this regard, I was very, very pleased to hear Minister Bayraktar this afternoon emphasizing both Turkey's capacity in the area of critical minerals and mining, but also its hundreds of years of history in this era, not to mention the real legacy and leadership that Turkish industrial groups are already playing in certain critical processing technologies that are so important to the overall energy mineral supply chain. Finally, the United States and Turkey will work together to leverage our relationships with Azerbaijan to help COP29 successfully build on the important momentum from COP28 in Dubai, including on the vital issue of abating methane in the fossil energy sector. Bilateral cooperation to reduce methane emissions, which are supercharging climate change, 80 times more potent than CO2, is yet another opportunity for American and Turkish companies to collaborate, to push innovation and reduce emissions while generating jobs and slowing climate change. So, without taking too much time and standing in the way of the further discussions, I want to thank Marty and the Chamber for again having me back to underline how much I look forward to continuing the work that we do together to build the U.S.-Turkish alliance on energy and to bring greater security and prosperity to our countries in a way that provides an example to the rest of the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Holding, Sabancı Climate and Cheniere, moderated by Ms. Defne Arslan, Senior Director of the Atlantic Council, and I would like to invite the moderator to the stage. The floor is yours, Mrs. Arslan.
I'd like to invite all my panelists to the stage so we can start and be on time. Thank you very much. Hoş geldiniz. Okay. Welcome everyone. It is wonderful to be, and it's definitely an honor moderating this important session on energy. And we just heard both from the minister and also Assistant Secretary Pyatt that looks like both governments did their homeworks yesterday, so this is a great news. And now it is our turn to tap the potential as private sector, what we can do about this, and how we can move this, dialogue that was started yesterday, and to bring it to the next level. So this is exactly what we will be discussing now with my distinguished panelists today. But before that, very quickly, since Atlantic Council, some PR notes on my end, which I need to do. Atlantic Council has been dedicated to building a proactive approach towards America's transatlantic allies and a closer globe, elevating both ourselves and our friends. This is why, despite the challenges, the Council continues to promote the understanding and collaboration between our two countries. I believe energy sector plays and will continue to play a significant role in future of the Turkish-American relationship. This is also another reason why we are building a new gathering in the region, which will also support this new energy dialogue, which is announced just today. Clean and Renewable Energy Summit to be held in Istanbul this October, and this will be our second summit, and we will be very happy to organize. This will be a regional big event, and we do hope that you all will be there as well to support this energy dialogue, which was announced yesterday, especially on clean energy, renewable energy, and all these new technologies. So, saying that, I'd like to turn to my panelists very quickly and introduce them to you. Mr. Kıvanç Zaimler, President of the Energy Group, Sabancı Holding. Kıvanç is also, he is the Vice President of the World Energy Council, Türkiye. So he has two hats, and which we will be speaking about. And Kaan, Chief Financial Officer of Kalyon Holding. Welcome, Kaan. And Phil Cornell, my friend, non-resident senior fellow, Global Energy Center of the Atlantic Council. And Phil is also global practice lead, energy and sustainability of the Economist Impact. And Justin Friedman, my former colleague, and Senior Advisor for Commercial Competitiveness in Nuclear Energy, Bureau of International Security and Non-Proliferation of the United States Department of State. And finally, and just about not the least, Alexander Whittington. Alex is Director of International Affairs of the Cheniere Energy. So welcome you all.
Thank you.
So it looks like we missed our minister, but we can continue, just with our questions. As I said, we really would like to, talk about the potential cooperation possibilities between two countries today, and we have limited time. I will start very quickly with Mr. Zaimler with my first question. Kıvanç, at COP28, Sabancı Holding announced it would invest more than 6 million in Turkey's clean energy technology. Billion, yes, okay. Billion, sorry. In Turkey's clean energy technology in the next 5 years. What are some of the projects that you are pursuing, for these 5 years? And what are some of the challenges in making these projects? And also, if you can also elaborate this a bit more, how this can create opportunities between two countries. So, thank you.
Thank you. I will try to summarize everything in one answer. I think voice is going. So this number indicates, is an indicator about the attractiveness of the energy markets in Turkey towards its goal to net zero. So we operate the most diversified and largest generation fleet of 4,000 megawatts, and the growth, the investments will come through additional renewable capacity beyond 5,000 megawatts. This is the biggest growth item. The second growth will come from the distribution grid, where we serve to 22 million population. And apart from the growth of the energy demand, the new energy solutions will require additional grid solutions. So these are the two main growth drivers. Apart from this, we have also investment plans on distributed generation throughout B2B solutions for our customers, as well as efficient solutions. So we operate the largest and the fastest charging network for electrical vehicles. On top of it, green hydrogen, ammonia, and storages along the renewables are the other growth elements. But this was all about in Turkey. On top of it, we have also investments in the United States in 2 blocks. We have already a 500 megawatt of renewable capacity installed in Texas, and which will grow around to 2,000 megawatts. We also invest in advanced energy solutions throughout corporate venture arm in the United States, where we have all the R&D capabilities, academia, and also funding. This is about us, but you ask about the challenges. When it comes to Turkey, I see more opportunities than challenges, because challenges are all around the world more or less the same. So the main challenge is the regulatory and policies. So the regulations in Turkey are much more agile. Maybe this needs some extra effort for international investors, but we have an agile regulatory system. On top of it, the second problem is the connection of the additional renewable capacity into transmission lines, as well as advanced energy solutions in distribution networks. This is the bottleneck all around the country. And third one is the financing. When it comes to financing, same all around the world, but emerging countries like Turkey needs fair access to financing. I underline fair because the terms and conditions, expectations of the lenders, supply chain restrictions needs to be fair, including Turkey. And the other point is the supply chain overall. This is another bottleneck in the overall system. And skilled workforce and human capital is another barrier in front of the renewable transformation. new adaptation of the new energy technologies. So these are the challenges that we are all facing all around the world. But Turkey has the potential, its young population, increasing demand, residential, industrial, urbanization, and still the consumption per capita in Turkey is half of than European countries, and maybe much more less than in the United States. So Turkey offers a unique opportunity, higher returns. If you ask higher risk, yes, but this is the cost of the higher return.
Kıvanç, thank you. Before I think we can do second round, but I want to follow up with what you have just said. I think you are in a unique position because you are also investor here, and you are also willing U.S. investment to come to Turkey.
Yeah.
And you just try to summarize what are the challenges, but I think there is still missing. Can you make it more clear how Turkey can attract more U.S. investment, energy investment?
I mean, first of all, I would like to state that, Inflation Reduction Act is a great incentive for investment in the United States, but we as the company has given our final investment decision before the IRA was launched. So we cannot rely always on the incentives. We have to believe in the market. We have to believe in the growth, in the potential of the market. And Turkey offers this. And the main problem about investing in international investment coming into Turkey is more about the predictability. This is the main problem. About the regulations, policies. Yes, we have a very dynamic regulatory environment, which doesn't give the longer outlook to international investors. But we have been investor for the last 20, 22 years in the energy segment, and we believe in the potential of the market, and this is maybe my role at the World Energy Council, Turkey, the Turkish committee. I mean, we have met some bilateral meetings with the American committee here, and we wanted to show this potential and give them the confidence in the Turkish regulatory system, with price forecasting, with regulatory policies in the country.
May I add to that a little bit? One more point, actually.
Of course.
I think
Continue with you.
it's also important to find the right partners for entering into Turkey for our American friends. There are a number of American companies that have been operating in Turkey for many, many years. And the key to their success, and they have been successful, more successful than, and more historically successful than some of the other countries. The key to success have been they have partnered with the right type of mentality and similar vision companies. And I think there are a number of such examples, but I think in trying to enter into Turkey, that's a very, very important point to consider.
I will come back to you, but from you, I really would like to, start with Justin. Justin, SMRs that I'd like to talk about. I think there's a big potential, cooperation potential, not only in energy transition, new technology, but SMR really plays a unique role. Also, as pointed out the minister in his remarks. So, what is the role of nuclear energy in the global efforts of clean energy transition? Maybe as a general context we can start with. And how do you see the role and potential of nuclear energy and SMRs in Turkey and the broader region? And what can be the next steps for the United States, especially after the dialogue has been launched yesterday? That do we expect some, expedited, roadmap regarding SMR cooperation there? So if you can enlighten us, thank you.
Sure, that's a long list of questions, and let me try to answer them as best I can. First, I want to agree with Kıvanç that, and with the minister, that the market opportunity for energy development in Turkey is huge. And as several speakers have talked about already, the notion that a grid must grow with the economy is critical, but the grid must also be stable. And renewables are fantastic, but you need base load energy supply. And when you talk about what the opportunity is in Turkey, for energy supply for nuclear, the first role is to provide that firm, carbon-free baseload energy that everyone needs to keep the grid operating, to keep the lights on, and to be able to charge your electric vehicles at night. So that's number one. SMRs, it doesn't matter nuclear, large, or SMRs. SMRs play a role, but the interesting thing in my perspective for SMRs is if you're looking at converting from coal-fired power plants to carbon-free electricity, SMRs are really in the sweet spot. They provide the same capacities as most traditional coal plants. In fact, in the United States, our Department of Energy did a study, and they found that 280 coal-fired power plants today could be effectively and economically switched to nuclear with SMRs. So already there are companies in Turkey that own and operate coal-fired power plants. I think I heard the statistic of 1/3 of Turkey's energy is from coal today. So that's a lot of megawatts, maybe it's multiple gigawatts of SMR that could replace that coal in a very orderly fashion and provide carbon-free energy. Then the next opportunities are huge and actually moving ahead faster in some cases than the coal conversion, and that is data centers. Data centers are huge, power-hungry, essential elements of the modern economy, and they need stable electricity that won't go up and down with as renewables can. And so many companies here in the United States, you know, the big names that you all hear about, the Microsofts, the Googles, the Amazons, are all looking at SMRs to provide stable power to their data centers. And I see that same opportunity in Turkey today now. The other interesting opportunity that I really like for Turkey is organized industrial zones. Turkey is a large trading partner with the European Union. Turkish companies in the coming years will face the carbon border adjustment mechanism. And so nuclear can provide carbon-free power to power those industrial zones, to lead to carbon-free production, to cross that border without an additional tariff. So huge opportunity for industrial zones. And I had one more, I want to make sure I get it right. The minister mentioned hydrogen. And I wanted to make sure I mentioned that as well, because a number of companies are exploring nuclear as the driver for hydrogen generation. Again, carbon-free hydrogen. They talk about colors of hydrogen. I don't want to get into that. The main point is that nuclear, through the heat from the reactor and the electricity it generates, can power hydrogen generation at scale today now. So a huge opportunity. Did I get your question? Did I miss anything? Because I think I got most of what I wanted to say.
Justin, you really got most of it. You know, I just want to make one point, especially in the nuclear cooperation between United States and Turkey.
Yeah.
Which we all know that, you know, regarding the big nuclear reactors, it is very difficult to finance them, and the current nuclear power plant that in Turkey was done through an RGA between two countries, and there were attempts in the past, you know, to build the nuclear technology also from the U.S. through Westinghouse, and but go through because of the, you know, again, the RJ has been a big issue, the financing aspect.
Yeah.
And we're coming back to the SMRs very quickly, you know, just what are the financing options that can be, you know, to build this, technology there and this together between U.S. and Turkish companies? Thank you.
Sure. First, on the government-to-government level, I've had the honor of being able to travel to Turkey several times over the last 2.5 years in this role. And we've had extensive conversations about, should we work together? Yes, we should. Do we do it one way or do we do it another way? So where we are today now is we're exploring how we move from talk to action. And I don't want to get ahead of those negotiations, those conversations, but the key point is that we want to see action on multiple fronts in the nuclear sector. And I have been asked to come back to Turkey in the coming weeks, and I hope to be able to do that, to move our dialogue further, but move from talk to action. So that's our key thing. On your financing question, I think that the strategic advantage of the United States is actually technology in nuclear, but also finance. And why do I say that? We have experienced lending institutions in our Exim Bank that have decades of experience lending for nuclear projects. Yes, it's been a while since the U.S. company built a nuclear project outside the U.S., or even in the U.S. We only recently had our first new reactors come online. But we've sort of been stretching and exercising and limbering up our muscles. And so Exim is very interested, and they have signed letters of interest to finance the project by Westinghouse in Poland. And they've signed letters of interest to finance work in Romania as well. So we're limbering up those skills. And at COP28, Exim Bank announced something called the SMR Toolkit, which lays out on a nice, simple piece of paper all the financial tools that can be brought to bear on an SMR project. So financing is out there. The other piece that we need to bring into and more aggressively is Wall Street. And Wall Street is looking for comfort and returns commensurate with risk, as Kıvanç talked about. But I think we're getting there. And as projects are developed in the United States, the risks will be mitigated, and we'll see much more engagement by Wall Street in the financing piece.
Thank you so much. Justin, I would like to move to Alex now. Alex, so you, in an effort to ensure better energy import diversity, Turkey invested heavily in LNG terminals, as we all heard also earlier today. And since Russia's invasion, there has been a lot of interest using this capacity to help supply gas to Southeast Europe. So how do you see Turkey's role in it, and are there opportunities to further support this cooperation in the region as on a company basis, and what are you up to? So if you can give some insights, can be great. Thank you.
Thank you, and absolutely. I'm not going to be as eloquent as Assistant Secretary Pyatt was in talking about how U.S. LNG companies were able to use Turkish infrastructure to help get molecules into Central and Eastern Europe. But I think in terms of LNG on the domestic side, LNG plays an increasingly important role in Turkey, and we think will play an important role for decades to come. And then on the international side, as you mentioned, a very important role in getting a diverse array of molecules and LNG into the broader region. So to kind of put it in perspective, since the Russian invasion of Ukraine, at Cheniere alone, we've produced about 900 cargoes of LNG that have landed in Europe. And also putting that in perspective, one cargo provides heat for 1 million Europeans for 1 month. So just a huge amount of volume that shifted globally. BOTAŞ infrastructure and Turkish infrastructure was critical in moving some of those molecules into markets, like the Assistant Secretary described, markets that were cut off very quickly from Russian gas. So I think going forward, the opportunities are immense in the region. We believe that LNG will continue to be incredibly important for Turkey, but also for the broader Balkan and Aegean Europe. And we really see the infrastructure in the country playing an important role. Now, everyone wants to be a gas hub in the region, and not everyone can be a hub. So it's a very competitive space, but I think it's a space in which BOTAŞ and Turkey are very well placed to play a leading role going forward.
Totally agree. Very quickly, follow up on what you are just saying. Again, as referring at both Assistant Secretary Pyatt and the Minister, Turkey really, increases its gasification capacity and storage capacity in the region, and also through interconnectors, just building in the region will continue to play an important role also for the European energy security. So having said that, what else as an American company you are looking at in Turkish market which is missing? Just so, and can you give some tips there? So
sure. I mean, it's a great market.
And on top of that, another question that I'd like to ask you is about the business that you are in. So as compared to the other markets, Turkish LNG market and other markets, where do you see Turkish market as well? Just so, and in your business network. Thank you.
So Turkey is one of our top 10 historically largest markets. We've been exporting LNG for 8 years. The first U.S. firm to begin large-scale LNG exports. So in that time period, we produced about 145 cargoes that have landed in Turkey. So to one of our top 10 markets. We really see, as the minister mentioned, that strong growing demand for energy, economic growth and population growth, driving kind of that demand for all of the above energy. Justin mentioned data centers. We really see future sources of energy demand across the world that are going to drive demand, not just for nuclear and renewables, but also for gas and LNG. It's going to play a critical role. That infrastructure is really important because at the end of the day, energy security is all about diversity of supply. Diversity of supply is all about choices. So for us, any new infrastructure, whether it's regas, whether it's storage, whether it's pipelines, provides a real opportunity to get molecules into those markets. So we look at it all from a very positive standpoint in terms of the build-out of infrastructure to land more LNG in country. And then, of course, as we talked about earlier and that you mentioned, the regional role, I think, is really attractive and really critical. I would just say the global LNG is a really competitive landscape. So I think that's one of our bigger challenges, not just in the region, but globally, is there are a lot of projects, there are a lot of companies, and it's a competitive landscape.
May I ask Alex, may I ask you a question? Do you prefer, as a reliable LNG supplier, one single customer in Turkey, which is a state-owned company, or you also would like to have a diversified customer portfolio?
Yeah, so we would love to talk to any and all parties that are interested in buying LNG, either in the short term, medium term, or long term. So it's been one of our bigger markets and bigger customers, principally driven on the state, on the parastatal side, but absolutely happy to discuss any of those options. In addition to all of our long-term contracts, and that's really the bread and butter of our business, we also have a trading operation that's based out of London that does spot cargoes and strips of cargoes. So we really try to be whatever we can be to our customers at any point and anything they need. I'm happy to have those conversations.
The minister is not in the room.
That's why I asked this question, Kıvanç, because he's not in the room.
Yes, I was brave enough.
Okay, so, well, Alex, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Really, just very, very useful. And from there, I would like to move to Phil, because Phil and I recently produced a report using gas in energy transition. So it's a perfect, shift from Chenier to, Phil's report and to getting his view, And Phil, we can talk a lot about the report which we recently launched in London, together. And but I want to talk about Turkey, if I may, and anybody who is interested in the report, it is on our webpage. Please check out. Turkey and the wider region are very rich in renewable energy resources, but the issue of insufficient infrastructure and technology still exists. You pointed out in the report, which can be resolved with increased cooperation. What are some of the common goals that can encourage regional actors to identify common strategies, and how can US and Europe have help with, with this cooperation in the region, especially, just with Turkey?
Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Defne. Well, maybe I'll just start with the report before we talk about sort of renewable energy. I mean, the purpose of this report was really to talk about the role of gas in the energy transition. I think, we've heard from the minister, we heard from Ambassador Pyatt, some great comments from Alex about what exactly is the important role of LNG in a place like Turkey. But inside the energy transition, there's kind of a polarized discussion about this, right? I mean, we left COP28 with people, the big debate is, should we phase down or phase out fossil fuels altogether? At the same time, we look at Climate Week last week, where the big message from climate campaigners to the president was we need to stop all fossil fuel extraction, or indeed the UN Secretary General, which held a summit among countries looking to commit to stopping all use of fossil fuels. At the same time, look, this stuff is very expensive. I mean, we've heard also just a couple of weeks ago, I think from JP Morgan, saying, look, among the $3 to $4 trillion of investment that we need every year to go into energy transition, this is not the macro environment in which this is going to happen. So I think to think about how do we, cut through those kinds of two different approaches, the idea about this report was to really look at what is the role of gas in pushing forward the energy transition. And the messages were a few. The first one is that even under the most ambitious climate change scenarios, or under the most ambitious energy transition scenarios, natural gas continues to have perhaps a limited but very important role to play, both in the transition, but also in a fully decarbonized economy. Now, why is that? Partly It's about the crucial role that gas can play in terms of stabilizing the grid, along with things like baseload power from nuclear, but also in terms of what it can do in terms of industrial uses in hard-to-abate sectors, where the reality is that there really aren't very many alternatives on the table to get us to the kind of heat requirements for things like chemicals, steel, and the rest. And of course, hydrogen, which is maybe the other option for that, is also a place where gas can play an important role in terms of providing the kind of, let's say, blue hydrogen. I know we don't want to talk about colors too much, but hydrogen that's made out of gas plus CCS, that's much more relevant at a price point than green hydrogen or hydrogen made out of renewable energy is going to be anytime soon. So that allows us in the medium term to build up the infrastructure around a hydrogen economy, which simply doesn't exist at this point. And why is that kind of sequencing it matters? Because let's say if we removed natural gas altogether, one of the findings of the studies was remove natural gas altogether, cut it off, the energy transition will continue, but it's something like $400 to $450 billion in extra spending every year. That's about 10 to 15% increase in the cost of what the energy transition eventually costs, and it delays that transition by something like a decade. So just cutting off fossil fuels now doesn't make any sense. Why? Because the sequencing also matters from a scaling and alternatives perspective. While there's a lot of natural gas uses, particularly in things like generation and things like greenfield generation, where renewables definitely are cost competitive, they aren't scaling at a sufficient rate so far to necessitate the cutoff of supply. So the entire idea of removing supply before there's sufficient alternative supply in place has the risk of carrying price volatility and finally creating price impacts that fall on the poor and most vulnerable first. That's very important for maintaining political support for the energy transition, particularly during a year like this one with so many elections. But it's also particularly relevant for developing countries, where, again, price volatility can have a massive impact. We saw after the invasion of Ukraine, very high prices for LNG falling disproportionately on developing countries. I'm thinking about Bangladesh in particular, but also others, and raising fertilizer costs, having real knock-on impacts on agricultural goods in developing countries. So that's number two. Number three is that, yes, particularly in these developing countries where financing for natural gas can have 70% is international. Much of that comes from public financing institutions. The discourse around natural gas in the energy transition, cutting off fossil fuels, phasing out fossil fuels, while it might just be talk, it has a real impact on policies and the lending environment. So first, from public finance institutions, whether they're export credit agencies, and we talked about the role of the DFC here, but also others in Europe, as well as development banks, we've seen that this kind of talk has led to essentially almost total cutoff of public financing support for particularly upstream natural gas projects. And that can be really, that can have a massive impact, particularly in those countries, let's say in developing Africa, where natural gas provides not only an important role in growing the available capacity in places where demand is growing extremely quickly, also in supporting that scaling up of renewable energy by creating more flexible grids, and finally, by allowing for a route to industrial development in things like chemicals and steel and heavy manufacturing that have an outsized impact on high-paying jobs and development in the region. So the talk matters, not only in developing countries, by the way, also because if we have, let's say, if we're trying to get to final investment decision on a gas project to supply, let's say, European markets, where the demand is obviously there, but there might be reticence to commit to long-term offtake because of environmental lobby and for a lot of discussions happening at the political level, that can have a real impact on the availability to actually finance to invest in new projects even at home. And so with all of these in mind, I think the last major message of the report is that with such an impact of gas policy and financing for gas hitting, again, developing countries, the poor and vulnerable parts of society in developed countries, it's that much more important that those countries and those segments of society should have a voice in the policies that are directly impacting them. And I think about particularly if we think about things like development banks and export credit agencies that are disproportionately impacting developing countries. And just very quickly for your final question on renewable energies in Turkey and what kind of infrastructure is necessary, it's a little bit slightly different topic. However, I would say there, it's really about investing in the grid. I think we talked before about the importance of investing in flexibility in the grid to allow for scaling up and integrating large amounts of variable renewable energy. On a cooperative regional basis, that can also mean a proliferation of transmission interconnections, which can go a long way to helping to stabilize and balance those grids on a wider basis, along with, of course, the kind of financing support and policies that we've heard about that the Europeans and the US can support. And I'm very hopeful about this new agreement that was signed yesterday, because parts of that also very much are focused on technology transfer and scaling up innovation, all of which we're going to move forward.
Fascinating field, thank you very much. And very quickly, I'd like to move to Kaan. My question will be, just on the top of what you have already said. At the end of 2023, Kalyon Holding announced significant investments within the next 5 years, especially in renewable energy. So what are some of your projects that the Kalyon Holding is pursuing? And also, combining my other question as well, very quickly, since with the surrounding geopolitical tensions and crisis, strategic planning and risk management was very critical, especially in a country like in Turkey. So as Kalyon Holding and decision makers become, needs to be very proactive on this. And Kalyon Holding CEO Mustafa Koçer Bey highlighted in a recent interview all these issues himself.
Yep.
So what are some of the priorities that energy companies and decision makers should focus on their plans for the upcoming years, and how you can put all these together in a pot so that you can not only expand your investment in Turkey but also attract investors to Turkey. So thank you.
Okay, I'll try to answer all of that within a reasonable amount of time. Maybe I'll take a step back and think about at Kalyon, and I think many of the other companies will do the same, is how do we think about our strategy when we go into the next 5 years, the next 10 years, whatever it's going to be. We try to look at 2 aspects on top of the commercial interests of the company, right? One is, what do people need? When it comes to energy, others have mentioned, the lights need to be turned on, right? People want to have lower and lower energy costs, right? And they want to be able to breathe fresher air. That's kind of the 3 basic tenets to it, right? When it comes to a second leg of it is, what does a nation need, right? And Honorable Mr. Minister has mentioned that as well. I think security of supply and reduction of dependence on imported fuel are the 2 drivers that are probably the most important in terms of energy policy making, right? So we kind of take a look at those 2 legs of the equation, and then we say, okay, how does Kalyon fit in here, and how do we help, right? So traditionally, we have, in terms of energy, we have 2 strengths. One is in the construction side of things, and the other one is as operator of many of the construction sites that we've actually entered into. We are one of the largest solar operators in Turkey. We have about a gigawatt and a half capacity in Turkey. And we also have additional hydro capacity, so overall about 2 gigawatts of renewable capacity in Turkey. I think over the next 5 to 10 years, we'll continue to focus on that. Maybe we will also look into some of the adjacent technologies that come with trying to make sure that there is a bit of a base load capacity that we are also helping into. Because renewable, as somebody else has said, the sun doesn't shine all day and the wind doesn't blow all the time, right? So those are the main points that we're going to do. But within Turkey, we will definitely continue to invest more in renewable energy and try to get into some of the adjacencies. I think when you look at the cross-border dynamics of it all, my number 1 philosophy, and I think this is the philosophy for Kalyon Holding as well, is dialogue, dialogue, dialogue, right? So when you are, for example, Turkish and American relationships, there are days when it's up, and there are days when it's down, right? But if you have relationships that have been established by different constituents that are part of your value chain, let's say. This could be in your customers' side, it could be your suppliers, it could be government administrators, right? When a rainy day comes, there are people that will pick up your phone when you call them, right? But if you don't have those dialogues established, and this is for cross-border and within the country as well, if you don't have those dialogues established in advance, right, you may not be able to anticipate what's coming. And when things come in, you won't be able to manage risk, right? So that's kind of how I would probably bundle up. Anyway, when it comes to what does that mean for Turkish-American relationships, right? Kalyon Holding, and I would probably speak for other companies that are interested in collaboration with American companies, is that we do want to be able to better understand each other, right? Both US and Turkey are quite sophisticated cultures, right? 50 states on one side. Within Turkey, you have a lot of different factions. So we need to be able to better understand each other. So increase in dialogue and increase in cooperation in terms of knowledge transfer and components, and as some of the others have mentioned, financing. So you need to create an environment where investment can kind of thrive.
Thank you very much. So this is really useful. I also very quickly, I don't want to go one by one because before we have to wrap up, but just turning all of you, if you have any additional comments that you want to make before we close up the session.
Maybe just for closing, we don't have any German colleague, I believe, but Germans come for holiday to Turkey for the sun. Germany has 60 gigawatt of solar capacity. In Turkey, we have already 12. This shows the potential in Turkey. Turkey needs first to adapt the renewable, all the base load, nuclear, conventional, SMR, gas either in pipeline or LNG format will come. We need all the green hydrogen, all ammonia, storage solutions, all the new technologies. But in Turkey, we have to first start with the transition of renewable energy. That's our urgency.
That's for sure. Kaan,
Last couple of words
else?
from my side is I'm excited about future collaboration between America and Turkey. I think that we have very similar cultures and we can do a lot of business together. So thank you.
Phil, anything?
Yeah, all I would do, I think, was echo the importance of collaboration. I've been working on energy and energy security, particularly in the Turkish region, since I began my career at places like NATO and the IEA. And I think the theme that comes through about Turkey over and over is the same, that it plays such a pivotal role at the center of East and West when it comes to energy in particular. And so I'm really excited to see the new agreement and how that's going to play out in the coming days.
Good.
Weeks.
Justin?
Just to add, we've talked about everyone here about the fact that the Turkish market is huge, the potential and the opportunity is huge. And so if it's so obvious to all of us, why aren't there more investment projects? Why aren't there more cooperation? And I think part of it is we need to talk more. We need to talk better with each other at a government-to-government level, as has been said here, but also at a business-to-business level. But the other piece is we need to think more holistically. And so when I think about the nuclear sector, I think we should be thinking, and I'm going to steal a word that I got from a Turkish professor when we were at the Green Tech trade delegation in Istanbul in February. He used the word ecosystem. And we need to think about creating an ecosystem in which Turkish companies can develop their skills that they have today and develop the skills for tomorrow to be part of the energy ecosystem in the nuclear sector. And with American companies as their partners, I think the opportunity is huge and we can travel a long road together.
Alex?
So first of all, honored to have the last word. But public support for the energy transition is critical if it's going to continue. And that means having energy that is reliable and affordable, both for Americans and for people in Turkey. And we really believe that natural gas has to play a critical role in ensuring that kind of stable and equitable transition. So I just kind of building on what people have said, leave it at that.
With that, I'd like to thank you all my distinguished panelists and also all our guests, ambassadors, distinguished guests. Thank you for being with us today. And I'd like to also thank the whole ATC team and also U.S. Chamber giving us this opportunity for this great panel. So with that, I really like to welcome you all to give a big applause to our panelists.